Have you ever wondered if you were going through a spiritual rebirth or perhaps a dark night of the soul? So if you are on the spiritual path, which you probably are if you are tuned in to this channel today, I want to talk about the dark night of the soul and some signs that you may be going through a period of change when it comes to the crumbling of the egoic construct. The first sign that you are going through an ego death is that you feel helpless. So when we look at this idea of helpless, it's very similar to victimhood. You know, we look at the emotional scale, it is very low on the emotional scale, meaning that this is as far as we can reach in the opposite direction of who we truly are. So our soul is ultimately freedom, peace, love, joy. And so when we are going through a dark night of the soul, we are experiencing the extreme polarity. We are experiencing the contrast in a very strong way. And so often when we are going through an ego death, we feel very helpless. And I think for most people, the way that this occurs is that you have wanted something or strived for something in your life, whether it be, financial success, whether it be, love and relationships, and you haven't been able to succeed essentially, or you haven't been able to accomplish what it is that you set out to. And often you experience disappointment after disappointment after disappointment, and you end up feeling very helpless because you want to be able to change something or create something or, experience something new or different, but you feel that you're stuck and it leaves you in this very helpless feeling. And this is so common, right? For anyone going through a dark night of the soul, most people will say, I felt very stuck or I feel very stuck. So that is the first sign. The second sign is that you are physically, mentally, and emotionally drained. So what I was saying before about our emotions being so low on the emotional scale, what happens is that anytime we are in fear, so fear can manifest as anger, it can manifest as depression, it can manifest as different things, but essentially we're looking at the emotion of fear. So when it comes to spirituality, we can break it into two concepts. We have love and we have fear, and they're always in battle together. So really what that means is we have the soul versus the ego. And so when we are going through an ego death, when we are going through a dark night of the soul, we are in low vibrational emotions. We are in fear-based emotions. And fear-based emotions drain us of our power. So emotions that are based in love, like joy, freedom, bliss, happiness, they actually fuel us with energy. So they fuel our body with energy, and that's why we feel like we want to go out and do things. We have energy to do things. And this is why when we look at something like depression, most likely, if you have depression, you understand and you know that you just have no motivation to do things. And the reason why is because when we look at the energy centers within the body, your energy is actually leaking out. So there is no energy in the body. There's no prana moving through you, which is giving you that life force and that motivation to go and do things. This is in turn why you end up feeling emotionally, physically, and mentally drained. So the third sign is that you find yourself talking about your purpose. So maybe your whole life you didn't really consider this, maybe you just went from job to job, or you did what your parents told you should do. But often when we go through an ego death, we realize that there's a reason why we came here, right? So the number one reason is we came to experience love in its full form. So with this dualistic experience, we can actually feel what we are. So if we are only love, which is essentially the 5D, we don't know what love is because we have nothing to compare it to. So we come into this physical body, in this physical vessel, for a temporary period of time, and we experience the duality. So we experience the opposite of love so that we can then have the contrasting experience so we know what love is. Of course, that's the main reason why we came here, but secondary to that is that often we come here with a purpose. And that purpose could be to serve, it could be to teach, it could be to just share love in general. The purpose can be different for everyone. Maybe someone's purpose is to train dogs, whatever it may be. But when we go through an awakening, often we pull back from our egoic idea of what it means to make money, and we look at what can we do to serve in a way that we are creating abundance, yes, but we are doing it from our heart. So there's a connection to the heart. And again, I said this in the last video, this can look different for anyone. So for some people, it may be something aligned with spirituality, but like I said, maybe it's something related to dogs or pets, or maybe it's, swimming lessons, who knows, but only your soul knows what your purpose is. So when we go through an egoic death, when we go through a dark night of the soul, we start to have questions about what is our deeper purpose here. And the last sign that you're going through a dark night of the soul is that your coping mechanisms are no longer working for you. So what is the purpose of our coping mechanisms? They prevent us from having to feel painful emotions. But in order for us to go through an ego death, we have to go through the dark night. And the dark night means we have to actually move through those negative emotions. We as humans are pleasure seeking. So we don't want to do that naturally. But in order for us to spiritually evolve, we have to understand that this fear that we are so afraid of because of the mental concept, we're so afraid of these sensations within our body that we will do anything to avoid them. And I made a video in the past about addiction and spiritual growth, and this is where addiction comes in. So it can look very minor, right? Maybe we're addicted to our phone, although I don't even know if that's really minor nowadays, but we could be addicted to our phone, and we could go as far as to being addicted to really heavy drugs, right? And all of this, regardless of whether it's phone or it's drugs, is a means to avoid painful feelings inside. It's a way to avoid the darkness or the shadow. But in order for us to evolve, we have to be able to make peace with both the dark and the light. So we can, and this is what spiritual bypassing actually is that we are in this happy zone where we just kind of avoid anything that brings up fear, shame, disappointment, whatever it is. We are directing ourselves towards that positivity instead of honoring the fact that if there is a negativity coming up within us, it is inside of us for a reason. And it's not as scary as we think it is. It's just that we need to shine the light of consciousness on it, which means that we look at our fears and our sadness and our pain with presence. And that's what we truly are, is presence. That is what our soul is. And what's beautiful about an awakening is that we get to embody more and more of the soul, and that soul casts this sort of light over all of the darkness. And so while the darkness is there, we're actually able to see beyond the darkness, and we can see it for what it is. It's allowing a contrasting experience for us in this physical world. And we know that as we pass away, which we all will, that fear will subside. And this is why for many people who have had near-death experiences, they actually had the ability to experience their true self momentarily. And they come back into the 3D world and they go, oh my gosh, my body feels so heavy. And they see how the experience of their true self is so light and free because they don't have the fear. They don't have the pain body that we have in the physical experience, but this is what we have, right? And so what's beautiful is being able to wake up within the three-dimensional world. So we don't have to pass away to experience that joy, that bliss, that enlightenment, and essentially that very light feeling that a lot of people describe as they go through their awakening. As I said, the last sign is that, you're ready to release these coping mechanisms because you're acknowledging that you are both dark and light, and you're able to integrate both. And there is so much unity and bliss that can really come from that experience. So these are a few signs. These are obviously not all of the signs, but if you resonate with any of these signs, it's very likely that you could be going through, an ego rebirth, an ego death, or a dark night of the soul. So I hope that this video was helpful. If you guys are on the spiritual path, I do recommend the Ultimate Spiritual Reboot. So as you guys know, I went through my dark night of the soul. Well, I've had a couple, but my big dark night of the soul was quite a few years back. And through that experience, I had to face my own darkness, which was very difficult. However, I can firmly say that there is so much peace and joy and freedom, mental freedom on the other side of that. And so what I did was everything I learned through my awakening, which was related to self-love, which was related to the mind, energy, related to how to actually tap into our abundant mindset, how to manifest from a soul place versus an ego place. All of these things that I learned, I compiled them into courses. So written and video content, these are designed to help you accelerate when it comes to your spiritual path. So this is something that I wish I would have had because it would have helped to move forward a lot faster. But if you guys are on the spiritual path, if you feel called to this work at this point in time in your life, I highly recommend the Ultimate Spiritual Reboot. There are multiple courses on there, again, written and video content. There's bonuses in there as well. There's a bonus inner child healing meditation for those of you who are looking to heal the inner child, which is so vital Tons of information on there, so I'll leave it in the description box down below, and there also is a promotion going on for that. But I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon. Take care.